Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are about to start. My name is Tatiana Hamel. I am the Associate Director for the MCiM program. The Masters in Clinical Informatics Management is a unique program at Stanford that brings together the intersection of learning in healthcare technology management. Our program is a one-year full-time master's degree designed to accommodate busy professionals, and our goal is to bring together a cross-disciplinary cohort of students at different career stages that will enrich the experience in the classroom and help cultivate a supportive learning environment, culminating in development of leaders who seek to advance diversity, equity, and inclusiveness in healthcare. This is her second event of a series of Meet the Experts information session. These sessions are designed to answer questions you might have about the program that no one other than her former students, and today also we have a mentor here, can answer. Today you learn directly from the MCiM alums how they unlocked the power of networking in the MCiM program. To facilitate this event, we are joined here today by Dr. James Gillespie, who has been with the MCiM program as an advisor and mentor to her students since the program's conception. Welcome, Dr. Gillespie, and thank you for joining us today. I will let you take it away from here.
Great. Thank you, Tatiana, for the warm introduction. I want to thank our four tremendous alumni we have tonight. You'll see as they introduce themselves and give their answers, they're both really, all four, exceptional healthcare leaders. Want to thank those of you that are joining us here live, and then some will be listening to the recording. And as we go along, feel free, we want to make this organic and interactive, so feel free to put your questions in the chat box, and we should have time to get to those at the end, for sure. So let's start with some self-introductions. Going to let these four amazing individuals introduce themselves. We're going to go Audrey, Aly, Shikha, and then Sergii on the introduction. So Audrey, let me turn over to you. If you can just talk about, kind of what you're currently doing, what year you graduated from MCiM, and just some of your overall background. Be great.
Yeah, for sure. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. So my name is Audrey. I was born and raised in the Philippines, where I started my career as a product manager for a health tech startup. Then I made my way into MCiM, and that's how I moved here to the US. I graduated just this spring, so I'm in the latest cohort or cohort number 3. And what am I doing right now? So I'm actually still at Stanford. I am doing a few more classes that I didn't get the chance to finish up, like while I was still doing MCiM. And on the side, I work part-time for Pandia Health as a product manager. And Pandia Health is essentially a femtech company focused on hormone management. So yeah, nice to meet you all.
Yeah. Hey, Audrey, maybe tell us what classes you're taking. I think folks might find that of interest. That you're
Oh,
still
yeah.
extending the program a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, right now I'm doing a bunch of computer science classes. So I just finished up on some algorithm classes. I'm trying to build up towards machine learning. So yeah, I finished the first year set of classes for computer science majors at Stanford.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, one of the cool things about the program, as we'll hear tonight too, I'm sure, is it's not just the MCiM program and faculty, which are amazing, but you can take courses across this tremendous university called Stanford. Great. Thanks, Audrey, for getting us started. Aly, go to you for a self-intro.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you for having us from the previous cohort, and thanks for the future prospects for joining. I'm Aly Abayazeed. I'm a neuroradiologist by training. In 2019, I co-founded a company in the healthcare AI neuroimaging space. We built AI applications for brain tumor imaging. I was the co-founder and chief medical officer. And I ran this company for about 5 years. And during my time in the company, I realized that I had a lot of defects in my knowledge when it came to business and more specifically the business of healthcare, but business in general. And even when it came to bioinformatics. And this is where really my interest on the MCiM program was. To fill those gaps in my knowledge. And I have to say it has been a tremendous experience. I've learned and grown so much. I made tremendous connections, a a lot of friends and networking that has expanded my my professional and personal network significantly. Two of them are right here. Sergey and Audrey are my classmates. We graduated together this spring, and just being in the Stanford ecosystem is just a great. It was a great privilege, and it's an amazing experience. So happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Aly. Yeah, and I might ask as a follow-up, you were very accomplished, but you said you had this gap from a business perspective. But why not an MBA? I'm sure it's something a lot of prospective students think about, because that's kind of one of the other major alternatives.
Yeah, no, I thought about an MBA, and what attracted me to the MCiM program, it's focus on healthcare and the lens of digital technology and AI, in addition to its focus on the healthcare management. That's really what attracted me to it. And also because I lived in Boston, and it was a weekend every 2 weekends. So it was geared more toward professionals who are full-time, have full-time jobs. So that interested me. And I was a hyper commuter for quite some time. The first 2 quarters, I was actually flying back and forth from Boston every 2 weeks. And then I moved on campus when I realized that I was losing a lot when it comes to networking and meeting people outside of the MCiM group, which was a great group, very accomplished, great group of 24 individuals. But you're missing on all the events and going to the GSP and going to the engineering school and meeting other people with different backgrounds and different perspective. And I ended up moving on campus actually for the last 2 quarters, just to benefit from what Stanford has to offer, as you were describing, James, beyond just the MCiM, which just added to the tremendous experience.
Great. Thanks, Aly. Shikha, to you for your self-introduction.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shikha. I'm currently at Headway, which is a mental health tech company, working on strategy and operations, specifically on our benefits and eligibility function. I was part of the MCiM cohort the year above everyone else, so I was graduated in the summer of 2023. Started my career off in consulting, worked at Bain & Company for a couple of years, then worked at Johnson & Johnson in health tech strategy and ops for a couple of years, and made my way into MCiM. Similar reasons as Aly, was thinking about business school, was thinking about, knew I wanted to stay in healthcare, and really was seeing a lot of growth opportunities, honestly, in my career at J&J, and thought that, hey, I don't really want to leave. I don't want to take 2 years off to go to business school. And I know I want to stay in healthcare. So MCiM felt like the perfect blend of knowing that I wanted to stay in this domain area, expanding my knowledge there, and not having to leave my job full time. Now, after starting quarter in, decided same exact thought process of there's so much going on and I feel like I'm missing out. So FOMO drove me to leave my full-time role and focus in on MCiM full-time. So happy to, throughout this conversation, chat about how to take advantage of the networking opportunities, both as a working professional as well as a full-time student.
Great, thanks, Shikha. And real quick, your consulting background, which is really strong, how did that make you a better student? How did it impact the lens that you looked at MCiM from?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's unique about the MCiM program is you bring in a variety of people across the healthcare spectrum, from physicians and clinicians to tech folks, product managers, and business biz ops folks. And so I think I just brought a lens that was somewhat focused in healthcare from my consulting experience or my past experience in big pharma, but also applicable across industries and how other industries might solve the same type of problems and same type of challenges that we face in healthcare, and being able to, I think, bring that perspective to folks who may have spent their entire careers in healthcare and were itching to learn across different disciplines was really helpful. That's
great. Yeah, I'll tell folks I've been on the admissions committee since the beginning, and I can attest the mix of the final class that we get, which is usually about 25, just truly amazing. Sergii, to you for the final self-intro.
Sergii, I think you're still on mute.
You're on mute.
Thanks. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so I'm Sergii. I'm originally from Ukraine, where I spent first 20 years of my life. And then I moved to China. I spent time in Shanghai and Hong Kong. For 10 years I've been there, and from Hong Kong I moved to US for the MCiM program. So while I was in China, in Shanghai and Hong Kong, I was working for or with collaborating with several medical device manufacturers and helping them to expand internationally in Asia and Middle East, building businesses, network of distributors, specifically in the rehabilitation segment, neurological rehabilitation and robotics. And once I came to MCiM, I've been also helping the companies to expand internationally as while also pursuing the master's degree here in the US. Once I finished this program, and while going through the program, I participated in several classes, also startup projects, and one of them that I'm continuing after MCiM right now, which is related to delayed discharges, which is defined as patients who are medically fit to leave the hospitals, they remain in a hospital for non-medical reasons. So I'm working now on this startup project idea and developing more on this segment. And also I'm writing a book about how to do international business development for medical device companies.
Oh, that's great. You know, we tell prospective students that you couldn't find a better ecosystem, right, in the Bay Area, just to state the obvious. But just tell us, Sergii, how it's been for you being part of a startup, being at Stanford, Silicon Valley, Bay Area. How are the resources been?
Oh, this is probably the best place to be in the world if you want to do your startup project. The whole ecosystem here, you know, even every class you take, almost every class you take at Stanford, they really encourage you to pursue something on your own. So I think that has been tremendous help and support from mentors, as MCiM has also incredible cohort of mentors that you can tap into and ask for their advice and experience. Also within the Stanford ecosystem, there are so many programs for people who want to pursue their startup, and maybe they have some idea or they may not have idea, different classes you can take. And then in addition to that, there are like people outside of industry who often come to hang out in Stanford, like VCs, for example, that you can easily meet and network and pitch your idea and check with them like their desire to invest in you or something where you can or get their feedback and see where you need to improve in your concept, in your business model, whatever, that can really help you to become a better entrepreneur and business leader.
That's great. That's exciting. We're going to move to our next question. It's everyone's going to weigh in on it. Sergii's going to go first, but I want to encourage those who are here, feel free to chat, put in questions in the chat box. We want to make this interactive, and we should have time at the end to get to those questions. If we don't, Tatiana is one of the key leaders of the program. She'll reach out to answer those. And those, if you're listening to the recording, feel free to reach out to us with your questions too. So our next question for everyone, it's kind of an icebreaker question. What do you miss most about being an MCiM student? There's a lot. I tell people being in Stanford is like being on a golf course, right? It's just so beautiful, so many smart, dynamic people. But what do you miss the most about the program? We'll start with Sergii.
Right. Well, there's a few aspects that I miss about MCiM already, even though it's been like just a couple of months as we graduated. First of all, it's a lively actually group discussions where with diverse perspectives that really broadened my understanding and challenged my thinking. One of the amazing part of the MCiM for every semester or for every quarter is you work in the groups. You have like you're assigned to a group of 4 to 5 people, and each of them coming from a different background. And when you work on a certain projects as a group, that really creates such a wonderful learning opportunity. You learn a lot from best in the world type of professors, experts in their domain, but also you learn a lot from your fellow classmates. So that kind of learning and that discussion, those debates, that's one of the aspects that I really miss about MCiM. There's a lot more I can add to it, but I also let my fellow panelists also to share their ideas and perspectives as well.
Great. Shikha, do you want to weigh in?
Yes. Biggest thing is the people. As Sergii mentioned, like just an amazing bunch of people as individual humans, like outside of class, just as friends, as well as folks to bounce ideas off of. And I think the program also secondarily does a really great job of putting you in situations where you start to challenge your thinking and start to think about areas that you previously had not thought about. So I, with my healthcare background, had thought a bit of the provider space, a bit in the pharma space, but had never really touched the payer landscape or thought about the medical dilemmas or things like that. And I think, starting even just with ethics class Friday morning, like you really get into the zone of thinking about healthcare as a holistic ecosystem in a way that I have not had the opportunity to do from a work perspective before. And so I think I really miss just being in that environment where you are challenged to think across so many different disciplines in this ecosystem with just some of the brightest minds in the Bay Area.
Great. Aly and Audrey?
Yeah, I mean, those Sergey and Shikha had great points, and I totally agree. I miss those two as well, quite a lot. I would say what I miss the most is what I would refer to as like the aha moments. In my introduction, I was talking about having gaps in my knowledge in so many things. And there were so many moments where I was like, aha, okay, now I understand how can I bridge that gap and how does these two things connect? And I've had a lot of those aha moments, and sometimes they came from the professors. A lot of times they came from my fellow students during our meetings, as Sergey was describing. And I also miss, there's a lot of personal growth during this as well. So be open to not only professional growth and knowledge growth, but also be open to personal growth in how to deal with diverse group of people and how to be a part of a team and be open to those experiences as well. I think I miss those the most.
Great, thank you. Audrey?
Thank you.
Yes, so like everything everyone said so far, especially to the people, I think coming into MCiM, people are just so genuine and so intentional about what they want to do with their careers, what they want to do for health care and that entire industry. I think it was such a great energy to be around, very lively and very exciting. Trying to think of something people haven't already said, but I do think that the Stanford resources are also so great. And like you have the opportunity to, of course, like be an MCiM and learn all about healthcare and like learn things from different people and different perspectives, but you also have the opportunity to like get out on campus and see people from different fields, different industries. And you can also kind of take inspiration from that and what they're doing and bring it into healthcare. And I thought that was always like really amazing.
Great, great. Well, thank you all. I'm going to pivot, dig deep into networking. I'm going to ask Audrey and Sergey about their strategies for networking they use at the MCiM program, what they found effective, and the connections they picked up, how they're leveraging those post MCiM. And I'll say, Stanford, a place like that is a yin yang, which is so many talented, amazing people, but they're busy. They're not knocking on your door. They have high opportunity time. They're not coming. You have to be proactive in your networking. So we'll go to Audrey first and then Sergey to speak on that.
Yeah, I think one of the best strategies that I had was just I don't want to say stalk them, but I mean like you have to know the person a little bit like before you reach out to them so that you're giving them a message that's a bit more thoughtful and engaging as compared to like a very like generic general LinkedIn or email message that they probably are getting from hundreds of people. So I think that's a great way to differentiate yourself and to really make it harder for them to not respond to you. Yeah, so that has been like my approach. And then I think the way I leverage that network is actually advice I got from one of the professors at MCiM, where he said he kept like a list of people that he would kind of message every 6 months. And at first I was like, wow, I felt like, whoa, like how does he keep up with that and how does he do all of that? But I realized it ties back to how people are human and everybody does want to help, like even if they are busy. So you just have to be very intentional about like keeping those relationships, even like past like you asking for something or you needing something or needing help for something. So yeah, just treat it
Great.
as a relationship.
Thank Audrey. You said they and them, but you weren't specific. Like who were you reaching out to? Is it alum? Is it faculty? Is it
Mm-hmm.
fellows? You know, where was your reach out going to? Or
I'd say I'd
non-Stanford?
have like two groups of people, right? So there are people within the Stanford network and within like MCiM network. Those were like a little bit easier to reach out to because then you already have a connection with them. Yeah, so you could reach out and be like, hey, like I'm also from Stanford. I'm doing like XYZ, like these kind of projects. And then I'm reaching out to you because I know that you've been doing like this type of work. So that's how I build like relationship with them and like build rapport. And then if it's for like a cold message or a cold email to someone, um, it obviously helps if you know someone else who already knows them who can make that introduction for you. So it won't be cold, but like a warm introduction. But yeah, like if it's a cold one, I typically try to keep it brief and again, like play into something that I know about them. And I try to relate something in my own career to something that they've done. So in my message, maybe there'll be a point where it's like you, I've also like XYZ, or like you, I've also been very, very passionate about like the femtech space, which is what I'm passionate about. And yeah, and I think that's really helped open doors.
Great advice. Sergey?
Yeah, I mean, Audrey mentioned quite a few wonderful topics. And one of the points that I also want to highlight is this: the networking is not like the goal in itself. Networking is like the mean to achieve certain goals, right? And it's very important to be fairly clear for what purpose you are doing the networking. What is your ask, or what is the question that you have on mind? And who are the best people, or who are the people out there that can help you to find a good answer to that question? And if you don't know, because this also can be situations that, you know, you come to Stanford, as one of the professors says, actually, I think it's Dr. Schulman who says, that being a Stanford is like coming as a child. You come to Stanford, it's like a child coming to the candy shop. There's so many candies, it's hard to choose which one.
Sure.
So many different networking opportunities, like how, for with whom do you want to network with, right? So having that kind of clarity, what you want to accomplish and who are the best people who can help you with that, it's an important aspect of this, right? And again, if you're not clear, if you have like still wondering what's the best thing to do, etc., that's also okay. You know, more than, I would say, studies go that 80% of the people do not know what they're passionate about. So then Stanford has these courses to help you out on this part, like designing the professional, design your life. There are great books about it that you can also take and learn from. But going back to networking, so Stanford has a lot of events, and you know, the saying goes, 80% of success is showing up. So you can just go in, meet with people like that way, especially if you're interested in startup field. There's so many different startup related events happening here on campus that you don't even have to do the cold outreach or like try to make some warm introductions, etc. You just have to show up, and then the remaining 20% is ask a question, engage, and that's how you build this connection, and then you follow up. Within 24 hours, you get the email address and contact, and then say like, hey, it was really great to meet with you. I've learned this and this from our conversation or from your speech. Would like to catch up. I have this couple of more questions to ask you. Would you have like time, maybe 15 to 30 minutes for a phone call or Zoom chat? And that's all it takes. And you just be proactive. You reach out to people, and while you also connect with them, you would need to figure out how you can also help them, right? So it's also learn about them. What are their goals? What are their objectives? And as you network through your program here, it's MCiM, you meet different people, and then you find out that you can actually be also helpful to them and help them to connect with some other people. So it goes both ways. So having clarity about the goals, being proactive, showing up, and understanding their goals, like people with whom you're networking, what are their goals, what are their objectives, and trying to help them the same way as they can help you. That's, I think, the best practices that I've been trying to apply in my networking as a strategy, and hopefully that can also be helpful for you.
Great. Thanks, Sergey. You stayed in contact with some of these folks.
Oh,
that
for
you
sure.
met.
Yeah. So similar from Audrey. I think there was a strategy class from Tip who mentioned, Professor, that he maintained list of 70 people with whom he reach out every 6 months or so. So being in touch and maintaining that connections is obviously it's very important part. So sometimes I would just send a text message like, hey, how are you doing? You know, and just give a brief overview of what I've been up to since our like previous conversation, maybe in a month or two or so, which progress I have made and what questions or challenges I'm facing right now. Yeah, and then we can kind of schedule this kind of catch-up calls in and out with different people, depending what I'm working on right now and what kind of help I need with or questions I have.
Great. Thank you. I'm glad you both mentioned that piece of advice. It's always effective to reach out to someone when you don't need anything, right? Just give them an update. It's really a great thing to do. I'm pivoting, and Sergey, you set up some of this next question. There's so many resources on the Stanford campus, workshops, webinars, networking events, etc. We're going to ask Shikha and Aly, how do you navigate that? The challenges and the paucity of stuff to do. There's just like too much stuff at Stanford. There's so you could never go to class actually. There's so many external resources. So Shikha first and Aly, how did you navigate, picking and that choosing of all these amazing resources on campus and then off campus?
For me, it was, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Amazing. My Roomba's running in the background, so I just want to make sure there's not a background noise. For me, it was 3 different categories of things that I was interested in. One was things that I was trying to intentionally learn about, that like I signed up for classes for, went to seminars, like was very deliberate about these are the topics that I'm interested in, this is what I'm looking for. The second was things that I was doing because I was trying to explore a different space. And I wasn't really sure if I was interested in that. I didn't know what I was going to get out of it, but I just wanted to spend some time and take advantage of the breadth of what was going on at Stanford. And then there was a third bucket of kind of things that fell into both. So from an example, like just to kind of tactically give you examples here, the first bucket for me, because I came from a consulting background, was in Stratton Ops. Like the things that I was most interested in getting out of the MCiM out of Stanford, outside of the MCiM program, were GSB classes. So I signed up for classes in product management. I signed up for Startup Garage, which is where you kind of incubate an idea with a team of folks. It's where like DoorDash and things spun out of, because I was interested in potentially starting a company. I signed up for some webinars around digital therapeutics because that was a topic that I was interested in. And then from a more exploratory perspective, Sergey mentioned Designing the Professional. It's a course that is run, I believe, like a couple times a year, where you go through kind of like, what do you want from your work life? What is exciting to you? What energizes you? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Who are people that you can talk to get there? They actually have some great networking strategies as well, in order to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. As well as took a course or signed up for a program called the Excel Leadership Program, which is actually a 2-quarter course that allows you to connect with VCs through Excel, the venture capital firm, and then connect with startups that they've funded to try and figure out if venture investing or startup life was the right fit for me. And that's actually through that connection is how I found my role at Headway. And then the last bit was like social things that I was excited about, things that were fun, but that were also a networking opportunity. So I signed up, for example, for the GSB healthcare newsletter when we went to some of their events, signed up for the GSB wine club and went to some of their events, and just got to kind of meet people in a much more organic, low pressure setting that I didn't know if they were going to be, the one connection that opened the magic door for me, but more so to kind of start to expand that network out. So that's how I would bucket it as you're thinking about the different types of opportunities that are available to you.
Great, thank you. And as our Associate Director, Tatiana, put in the sidebar, GSB is Graduate School of Business at Stanford, one of the top 3 business schools. I want to ask you, Shikha, and then Audrey, I want to ask you real quick. Shikha, how did you find it taking classes at GSB? Are you welcome? Are you considered an outsider? How does that work? And Audrey, I know you're doing it from computer science. I want to ask a similar question. Shikha?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely welcome. They help you get set up in the same way as the GSB students with the same name tag and everything. And I think they're also quite friendly individuals. They're similarly here to kind of get the power of the Stanford network to network and really build their connections. And so I found it to be actually quite welcoming. And also the professors tend to actually save some portion of their class registration for non-GSB students, exactly for this reason of being able to build a diverse class, a diverse cohort. So it's welcomed both on a student level as well as a professor level.
That's great. That's amazing to hear. I know a lot of our prospective students, the ability to take some class at GSB is very attractive, and or to network with those MBA students and faculty. Audrey, how have you found the amazing computer science program?
Yeah, I think with the computer science ones, at least if you're taking like the introductory classes, it's a lot easier to get in because you have like hundreds of people in that one class. So those have typically been easy. You just need to understand that like one class is like basically 5 units. So you're kind of taking on a lot of work and you have to be able to balance that with, of course, like the MCiM curriculum and other things that you might want to be doing on campus. I've also taken a few where you need to like sign up and there are like forms and they essentially like pick students to join the class. So I'd say for those classes, it's best to be very proactive. I like to reach out to the professor before the form is even out, letting them know that I'm interested in joining their class and why I'm interested in it. Um, and so that way they're already kind of looking out for my application before the form hits. And then yeah, I think that's really helpful, just being like timely with knowing, okay, like this is the day where all the forms are released. This is the day that classes, like you need to enroll for classes and then like working your way backwards from there.
Great, thank you. And Aly, I want to give you a chance to weigh in on this about the resources across the Stanford campus and at MCiM.
Yeah, so I really coming in, I wanted to focus on three things. First of all, to expand my network in relation to venture, given my kind of startup background and wanting to stay within that part of industry. So I joined the Stanford Venture Studio, which is, it's open to any Stanford student. And that has been extremely helpful. Attended a lot of venture events and networked and expanded my network significantly in the VC world. I met a lot of investors in very, very prominent VCs in the Bay Area. The other thing was expanding my network into my own field, which is healthcare AI. And there were specific groups in Stanford that I was interested in, namely Hi, Amy, and Chai. And I was able to attend all their events and network with all the members of those group. And these are connections that I still have till today and will continue to nourish. The last thing was I just wanted to be following something that I read in one of GSB professor's book, Ilya Trebolov. I don't want to butcher his last name. It's called The Venture Mindset. Recently came out and it kind of clicked with me that that's what I was looking for when I was during Stanford, but I didn't have a name for it. And it was called just being open to unusual encounters. Is just try to seek people that look completely different than you, have completely different background. You are unlikely to have any commonality with them, and just be there and talk to them and learn and try to be open to these kind of encounters, because I noticed that was a significant growth for me, both professionally and personally as well. So these are the kind of the three buckets that I was focused on in networking. And unfortunately, I only had 2 quarters to do that, but I literally spent every moment possible during those 2 quarters networking. And I also attended a couple of GSB classes that I thought were very helpful. And I attended a CS class. So I tried to maximize those 6 months away from the kids and being on Stanford campus.
Great, thank you. Hey, our next question is going to pivot and talk about rejection. And if a couple of you can weigh in, we didn't assign this, but 2 of you can weigh in on this. It's twofold. One is Stanford, great people, but not everyone's going to respond, right? You'll reach out to people within the family. They won't get back to you. Similarly, externally, while Stanford's an amazing brand, opened lots of doors, when you reach out, there's no guarantee the person will respond, or if they do respond, will be friendly or favorable. So if a couple of you could just talk about, we face rejection our whole careers, but how you found that in terms of the networking when you were ignored or you got a rejection.
maybe I can start. And
Sure.
yeah, so my take on the rejection, it's more like dating in a way. You have a right to ask a girl or a guy out, and they have a right to agree and go with you, or they have a right or to choose to be busy with some other priorities. So that's absolutely, a normal thing to have. And also people can have and would have different priorities depending where they are in the particular moment in time when you are reaching out. So be okay. That's just kind of given, right? So that is the one point. Another thing is kind of to what Audrey referred earlier, is about doing some background research and reaching out to them, especially if you don't have any warm introductions, to show them that you really did your homework and coming with a good background knowledge about them, and you have to something more substantial to discuss, right? So this is harder. This way, it's harder for them to say no. So it's more likely to say yes, right? This is how you can increase your chances. Yeah, and then the third thing is sometimes when you need to do research or interview certain people for, let's say, your research project. Like, for example, now I'm reaching out to different case managers in hospitals. It's like hundreds of people that I'm reaching out on LinkedIn, and I get maybe 3-5 responses out of every 100 outreach, right? Because again, this is just kind of the nature of what I'm doing right now for the research. That's also kind of a normal thing. So sometimes it's just a number of games that you have to increase your number of outreaches in order to meet so-called your targets, if you have, in terms of number of interviews, informational interviews that you want to conduct.
Great, thanks, Sergii. Hey, great answer. We'll pivot to the next question, actually, and talk about diversity and inclusion in MCiM. It's something our founder and director, Dr. Kevin Schulman, is passionately committed to, for his whole career. Wanted to ask you, Shikha, to talk about how that impacted your experience in the MCiM program and then beyond with your peers as well as other parts of the community.
Yeah, I think, again, because of the diversity, both from a background perspective, from past work experience perspective, that the MCiM cohort has, it's really, you get access to, a friend or a connection of a classmate that can vary from a wide range of different individuals. And so it makes it very, easy is the wrong word, but very expansive to be able to tap into that network and really understand if there is a connection out there that can help guide you to the right place. And sometimes it comes from an unexpected source. Sometimes it brings you into a direction that you weren't necessarily trying to move in, but can set up an informational call, and maybe it's much more interesting than you thought. And I think then having a diverse set of individuals and their connection sets being a magnitude even more diverse from there starts to really bring that to light in the MCiM program.
Great, thank you. Hey, we want to go ahead and pivot to our last question. Let's someone add something to add real quick on diversity and inclusion piece. Great. Want to encourage those that are listening, feel free to put your questions in the chat box, and we are going to have time for that. So our last question is just talking about the Stanford brand, the MCiM brand. We're going to ask Aly and Audrey to weigh in on this, how they were able to leverage that in their career. And I'll add, I think Stanford right now is the #1 brand in higher education globally. These things change, right? It may not be 10 years from now, but it is right now. It's had a tremendous run. How have you been able to leverage that brand? MCiM, of course, is less well known, but it's still an amazing program. So, Aly, you want to weigh on that first?
Yeah, absolutely. Two things. First of all, I'm charging more per hour for my radiology reads right now. So thank you, Stanford. And that's one thing, very important. And the other thing that I'm actually applying for university positions that I would not have qualified for before, with a number of very well high Ivy League universities, including Stanford, at that intersection of healthcare and AI. And I think if I didn't have the MCiM degree, I would not qualify for those positions. So it's been great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Audrey.
Yeah, well, I'd say one of my goals in coming into MCiM is really to learn more about how you can grow like health tech businesses. And that's something that I really wanted to bring back to the Philippines one day. And so I'd say because the Stanford name carries so much weight and like this MCiM program is new, but I think it's getting stronger with every passing cohort. It's also opened a lot of doors for me, not just here in the US, but also back home, where now I'm in touch with a lot of VCs who are looking at building healthcare in the Philippines and seeing how that will grow. So, kind of being on the forefront of that. And I don't think I would have access to do so without the MCiM or like the Stanford background. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Well, good. Let's pivot to the Q&A. We have a question pending from Alexi. Great question, and the four of you or all four can jump in on this. Was there one class during your, whether at MCiM or across Stanford, that really impacted you? You're excited to go to, and maybe an extension of that, if you want to weigh in. Was there one professor that she or he or they really had an impact on you? So, want to jump in on those?
Everybody say Kevin Schulman on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Kevin Schulman, yeah, he's our founder. So
oh my gosh, yes.
He's amazing, everyone. Let's say that's a given. Kevin Schulman. Yeah. Others, non-Kevin. Other faculty.
Yeah, I thought the by design was amazing. Kate was fantastic, and
can you just say their names so people can look them up? Full names. Kate.
Kate Rosenbluth. Did I say that right? Last name? Okay. That was an amazing class. I think also, Nigam Shah's class, the data science class, that was just fantastic. Yeah, so those are my two, plus Kevin.
Yeah, and Aly put one in the chat box. Audrey or Shikha, class or professor?
For me, it was leadership in healthcare organizations. So Sarah Singer's class on organization.
Oh,
yeah, that was great.
Just challenged the way that I thought about working in teams, managing upwards, managing downwards. Now as a people manager, it's been such a fundamentally useful class in everyday life.
Yeah, that's
great. Audrey?
Yeah, I think it's so hard to choose because every single class and every single professor was amazing, and they all brought something so special to the MCiM program. Top two, maybe Tip Kim's class on strategy, because I think it was a really great introductory piece into how the US healthcare system operates. And I think Tip in general just gave me like a lot of professional and as well like personal growth. So that was really good. And then I think another one would also be the marketing class. It was very fun. He likes to call people randomly, and it was a little bit stressful at times, but it was so good. It was like one of the best classes I've ever had. So yeah, that's with Jonathan Levov. Yes.
Great, thank you. And what's cool, these folks, a lot of them you'll see them quoted, right? The Wall Street Journal and other outlets, and read their publications. Good. And we have another question. And by the way, audience, feel free to go ahead and type in. We still have a few more minutes. We have a question. Can you speak about the MCiM program? And it's a big part. So maybe if a couple of you can just, first explain to folks what it is. This is project-based requirement. And then if you could blend in like the theme for tonight, how is networking part of that? Because I know it does come in. Because usually you need to reach out to get a Practicum site, or if you're going to do with collaborate with the professor. So you often cannot do as a standalone. So folks want to weigh in on the Practicum and just explain a little bit about what it is.
I'm happy to start, but would love folks to jump in here. So starting out on kind of what it is, it's a 2-quarter long, I believe now, research project that you take on. Can be truly anything. It can be folks from my year did a case study. I worked with a startup to kind of build out my startup experience. Folks do research projects. Like it really is kind of almost anything under the sun. And there are tracks to help kind of guide you to have a little bit more structure around it. But really, it's an opportunity for you to take what you've been learning throughout the course of the year and really pick an area to dive deeply into in a way that is going to feed into whatever your career goals are moving forward. And so for me, I knew I wanted to start to explore startups. I wanted to go into the mental health space. And so I started reaching out to different startups, and Dr. Gillespie was actually really helpful for me in helping create a lot of warm intros in that process. To try and figure out if they had either an open role for a full-time job, or if they didn't have that currently available, hey, would you be willing to let me work for you for 10 hours a week for free? And that was oftentimes a much easier sell. And so starting to kind of get your foot in the door, work on things that you may not, in spaces or on projects that you might not normally have access to. For me, that was the biggest driver, or the biggest value of the Practicum opportunity.
Great, thank you. Maybe we'll have everyone weigh in on this, because that Practicum is so important. And now this will kind of be our last question, probably. Shikha, we'll go to you, then Audrey, and then Sergii.
Shikha already spoke. Do you want me to go?
On the Practicum? Sorry about that.
On the Practicum. No, that's okay.
Yeah. Audrey, thoughts on the Practicum?
Yeah, I think exactly what Shikha said, the Practicum is a great way for you to explore on things that you might be curious about, but are things that you're not maybe able to do like during your day-to-day job. So in my case, the Practicum, I did two things. The first was to do an internship, and that was with Pandia Health. That was to explore more of like the femtech scene, because that's really where my interest lies. And I actually worked with Sophia Yen, who's one of the mentors at the MCiM program. Yeah, and then the second piece that I did for my practicum was a landscape piece on the Philippines like healthcare system. That's because I found that when I got here, there were so many resources on like the US healthcare system and how those things operate, but the Philippines didn't really have that set up. And, as I mentioned earlier, this is something very close to my heart, and that's something that I really wanted to do, kind of like your own passion project, if you will.
Great, thank you. And Sergii, finally, want to weigh in on what you did for your practicum and any networking dimension to it?
Right. Well, important part for choosing your practicum project is something that is not you're not intimately familiar with, something that you actually want to learn and figure out. So, and what are those curiosities that you have within you that you want to try out and test it out? So one of my curiosities that I had was to do research. So I reached out to a number of professors who run different labs at Stanford under School of Medicine, and I just cold emailed them. I just found a list of labs, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for an opportunity to do some research. Would you need any help with any of your research projects? And I ended up being in a lab that does neuroscience research related to testing novel EEG device for patients in the Stanford healthcare. That led me to really get to know people in the Stanford hospital, which was hugely helpful then later on when I started to work on the delayed discharges project, that I already had that familiarity with the Stanford hospital. I know some people, so I can just go there and pursue some other projects as a result of my initial curiosity about doing research in the neuroscience field about novel EEG device. So in fact, I had kind of like two practicum projects. Like first was this research experience at the lab, and then the second one was delayed discharges. But again, when it comes to the networking piece, is that you get to know people and then you have experience, and then you build from that experience, you meet more people, and then you build on top of that. And so that was hugely helpful and useful.
Well, great, thank you. Anyone have any final thoughts as we wrap up here? It's been a great discussion. Any of our four alums?
I would say it's not mandatory or required to have a practicum concept going into MCiM, but I would highly recommend it. I found it very useful for myself. I came in with an idea, with a concept that I wanted to explore more, and I was working on it from day one. And so I spent the whole year working on it, and now it's a viable idea that we are actually raising money for. But it takes a year to come to that point. So you can definitely start Q2 or Q3, and you will get a lot done. But if you come in with a concept and you start working on that from day one, and it will be extremely useful, I think.
That's great advice. Now I'll just add the Practicum here. It's a chance to do really anything, and you're in this amazing ecosystem called Stanford. It's just it's there's some stress to it, but it's a really tremendous opportunity. Well, thank you all, four of our really amazing alums and young healthcare leaders. Thank you for this great session, very informative. You gave really specific advice, which we appreciate. Our associate director, Tatiana, has put some great resources in the sidebar, list of faculty, program overview, and she's also clicked on a way to contact her for meeting. And hopefully I can speak for the four alums and invite you to connect with them, or at least reach out to them on LinkedIn. Hopefully they won't get mad at me for saying that. But I know they enjoy engaging with people, so feel free to do that. Thank you all for joining. I want to turn over to our Associate Director, Tatiana, for some wrap-up comments. Over to you.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. I really appreciate the alums being here, James, yourself for moderating this beautiful panel, and the students. A quick reminder to everyone, the application portals for the cohort number 5 will open on September 12th. So a couple weeks from now, I put some resources that might be useful to you on the chat. If you want to start preparing your application, I recommend you download the checklist, and everything we'll be asking you during the application process has been listed in our checklist. If you have questions, please do reach out to us, and anything else you need, just send us an email. I will be distributing this recording probably tomorrow or Friday once it's available to us. Again, thank you everybody for joining us, and have a fantastic evening, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
See you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.